There are so many things that make the Netherlands special.
We are on a quest to experience as much of it as possible while visiting our daughter who lives here and taking Cassandra's father, who's from the Cayman Islands, on the European trip of a lifetime. This is our Netherlands story about our explorations and our family's connections with this beautiful land. Hi everyone. In this episode, we're going to tell you about all the highlights of our visit to the Netherlands, and we're going to talk to you about all the things that we learned along the way, including walking on stilts. And I'll tell you that story a little bit later on in the video.
About 2 months ago, we embarked on an exciting and personal journey that we call our Netherlands story. We brought my dad with us to the Netherlands to attend our daughter's graduation ceremony from Utrecht University. And we wanted to take him to the port of Rotterdam, where he worked on a cargo ship more than 60 years ago. And really, we just wanted to experience as much of the Netherlands with him as we could during our 2-week visit.
So now we're at the end of this first volume of our Netherlands story, and we want to show you our favorite highlights from our adventure, talk about some of the things that we learned during these travels, especially from our viewers' comments on the videos, and then talk about what we expect to do for Volume 2 of our Netherlands story that we expect to be in 2026. We also want feedback from all of you about the places in the Netherlands that you would like us to visit when we continue our story. First though, here are some of our favorite highlights from our 2-week adventure in the Netherlands.
At the beginning of our story, my dad flew from the Cayman Islands to Florida, and then Scott and I traveled with him to the Netherlands. We were all so excited to be starting this adventure together. We stayed at a hotel near Utrecht Central Station and used that as our travel hub for visiting places throughout the Netherlands. On our first day, we wanted to unwind from a busy day and night of travel, so we spent the afternoon in Houten, a small city just south of Utrecht, which is world-renowned for its exceptional biking infrastructure. We love hanging out at Raadplaats Lake and seeing the beautiful rainbow houses. During this visit, we also had the special treat of seeing the peak of the fall colors along the quiet streets of Houten.
On our second day, we went to the port city of Rotterdam. Here we took Cassandra's father, Cassidy, on a cruise in the port of Rotterdam, where more than 60 years ago he worked on a cargo ship that came here and to several other European ports. We interviewed him on board the cruise and learned many things about the time that he spent as a seaman on a ship called the Taurus. Then, when we visited the Rotterdam Maritime Museum, the librarians there helped us to find information about the Taurus ship, something that Cassidy had wanted to learn more about for a very long time. Finding records about this ship was a thrilling moment for all of us and something that we will never forget.
We spent the next couple of days in Utrecht, where we saw our daughter's beautiful graduation from Utrecht University in the University Hall next to the Dom Cathedral. We are so proud of her, and this, of course, was a highlight of our visit to the Netherlands. Also in Utrecht, we spent some time exploring the city. One morning, we walked around the Vredenburg Market, just outside the Hoog Catharijne Mall, and we were amazed at the selection of foods and other products. Then we had some incredible morning views of the Dom Tower as we walked toward the Dom Square and Cathedral. We also spent some time in the Pandhof Garden, a quiet oasis nestled between the Dom Cathedral and University Hall. This is definitely one of our favorite places to visit in the city. Just north of Dom Square is the Jens Kerkhof Flower Market, where we browsed a beautiful and impressive selection of flowers. Then we did a relaxing narrated canal cruise right through the heart of Utrecht for some spectacular views of the city from a different perspective. Finally, on a different day, we took a bus from Utrecht Centraal to Science Park, where we visited one of our favorite places, the Utrecht University Botanical Garden.
Next, we spent a day in Delft, where we visited the Royal Delft Factory and Museum and learned about the history of Delft blue pottery and how it was made. We then walked to the impressive Central Markt, where the beautiful Nieuwe Kerk, or New Church, stands directly across from the Stadhuis, the City Hall. We toured both the Nieuwe Kerk and the Oude Kerk, or Old Church, and then finished our day with a wonderful canal cruise.
Next was Zaanse Schans, a place that we had wanted to visit for a long time, to see the colorful windmills and historic buildings of the Zaan region and learn about how windmills contributed to Dutch industry. We even had an opportunity to climb to the top of a windmill, and my dad climbed right up there with us. This was an incredible experience, and the views from up here were gorgeous. We really enjoyed our day and learned a lot at Zaanse Schans and highly recommend visiting.
After Zaanse Schans, we went to Gouda, where the traditional Dutch cheese trade started in the 1300s. We had an amazing time at the Gouda Cheese Experience, where we learned how cows turn grass into milk, got practice milking cows, and learned about all of the steps involved in making Gouda cheese. We then had the pleasure of tasting several different varieties of Gouda cheeses, and they were delightful. To finish off the day, we walked to the city square where we saw the impressive Stadhuis, or City Hall, built in the 1400s, and directly across from that, we saw the cheese weigh house, where Gouda cheese was traditionally weighed for trading.
Next, we had a quiet day in Arnhem at the Openlucht Museum, or Open Air Museum, where we learned a lot about Dutch history, farms, and windmills. We went to a bakery, ate fresh puffertjes with cinnamon and sugar, and then we visited with a friendly little sheep near the windmills that we affectionately named Cinnamon. We saw several different types of windmills used for pumping water, cutting wood, and grinding grain. The fall colors here were amazing, and we had an incredible view of them after climbing to the top of another windmill. We ended the day with traditional Dutch games and 3 generations of our family attempting to walk on stilts.
After seeing this video, one of our viewers commented and gave me the suggestion to hold the stilts rigidly behind my shoulders. After that, I was determined to learn, so I built my own stilts, followed the advice from our viewer, and after several hours of practice, I was able to walk with the stilts behind my shoulders. Then, after practicing for several more days, I was finally able to walk with stilts in front of me, as you saw at the beginning of this video. Then we went to Amsterdam, where we walked around the city, enjoying the fall colors around the canals and other beautiful sights in the city. Here we visited the Anne Frank house, where we learned the touching and heartbreaking story of how her family and friends went into hiding when Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands during World War II. Finally, we went on a long, peaceful cruise along the Amsterdam canals, marveling at the fall colors and beautiful architecture.
On our last day in the Netherlands, we visited Castle de Haar, in a quiet rural setting just west of Utrecht. Here we spent much of the afternoon exploring the gorgeous gardens surrounding the castle and enjoying this beautiful fall day. We also enjoyed seeing the incredible architecture of the castle, both inside and out. Finally, we had a wonderful walk through the countryside on our way back to Utrecht.
As you can see, we had an incredible time in the Netherlands, experiencing as much of this beautiful country as possible during our 2-week stay. This is not the end of our Netherlands story, though. We will be sharing Volume 2 of this series with you after our next visit to the Netherlands to see our daughter. At the end of this video, we will tell you some of our plans for this, and we also want to hear from you in the comments about where you think we should visit during our next trip to the Netherlands. So during this series, we've had many comments from viewers, and we not only learned a lot from the information that you shared, but some of these comments also help to shape the way that we do our videos. Many of you have shared historical information about places in the Netherlands that taught us a lot, and also helped to inform other viewers about interesting details of these places that we didn't originally include in our videos.
Right. So after we started getting detailed comments like these, we realized that many of you would like to see more of the historical details in the videos. And we also realized that including more detail would appeal to a broader audience of viewers. So you might notice that we did start to include more details after the first few videos in the series. So thank you very much for helping to make these videos better. We would also like to note that we try very hard to present all of the details correctly and to pronounce the Dutch words correctly. We truly appreciate when our Dutch viewers compliment us on our pronunciation. Yes. We try very hard, or at least our attempts to. And we also appreciate when you help us by telling us the correct pronunciation of words that we do not quite get correct. Something else that we've really loved is when our viewers have shared their own personal stories about their own experiences in a place, such as their family's connection with a place or with historical events in the Netherlands. One example is one viewer sharing their family's direct connections with the Anne Frank story. Another example is a viewer whose mother was the first to lay flowers at the Anne Frank statue unveiled in Utrecht in 1962. These are really touching stories that help all of us to connect with and to better understand the history of these places.
Yeah, and it's also been very touching when viewers have told us our videos brought back memories from when they grew up in one of these locations that we talked about, or when they traveled to one of these places. One example is a viewer who grew up in Gouda but moved away 25 years ago, and our video reminded them of their hometown. Others have shared memories of when they traveled to parts of the Netherlands many years ago and have thanked us for helping to bring back those cherished memories. It has also meant a lot to us when people have taken the time to leave very positive or very detailed comments, or commented on more than one of our videos, or contributed responses to the comments of other people. Of course, we appreciate every comment and contribution to the conversations, but when we see some people putting in a lot of thought into their comments or contributing to multiple videos, it feels like we're really getting to know some of you, which we really enjoy. I also want to specifically thank the viewer who gave me the tip about how to walk on stilts. This inspired me to build stilts and gave me the confidence to get started, and I've had a great time learning how to walk on stilts with my two sons.
Yes, and finally, let's talk about Volume 2 of our Netherlands story, which we expect to happen sometime in 2026. There are some obvious places that we didn't get a chance to visit in 2025 that we'd like to get to, including Den Haag, or The Hague, Haarlem, and Kinderdijk. We've also talked about going to Groningen, and while we are in the Northeast, we'd like to follow one of our viewers' suggestion and visit Bortange. Other than these places, we don't have any definitive plans, so we would love to hear from you all suggestions for places to visit during our next trip to the Netherlands. We look forward to your comments and suggestions.
So, in upcoming videos, we're going to take you to the Caribbean and show you around the place where Cassandra and her dad, Cassidy, also known as Papa from the Papa Cam, grew up. They grew up in the Cayman Islands. Many tourists go to Grand Cayman and see only a very small part of the island, but we want to take you around to many of our favorite places so you can experience it like a local. Also coming soon, we plan to take you to on some of our other European adventures, including places we've traveled to by train from the Netherlands, like Belgium and Switzerland. We will show you some of the different ways that we've visited European countries, how we navigated the train systems and other forms of transportation in different countries, and what we learned from these experiences. So please subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any of these adventures.